Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and a big thank you from Nexus to all of you for supporting today's event. My name is Tim and I will be hosting this afternoon's proceedings. As you will be aware, this is an early years webinar focusing on the age group 3 to 5 years. And soon we will start with a short montage video giving you a broader knowledge of the Nexus range of resources. This will also give any latecomers the opportunity to register any questions. For those of you who are new to webinars, this is done by left-clicking on the speech bubble, which is found just left of the hand in the options bar. On completion of the video, we shall segue straight into our resident expert and co-host Charlie, who will give you a brief overview of our PEGS2 family of products. And then he will expand on this with a closer look at the individual components. Here you will see our iconic, world-renowned PEGS2Paper, recent edition PEGS2 CountUp, and the newest member of the family, PEGS2 Construction. During this afternoon's webinar, you will see demonstrations, debates, exercises, ideas, and tips that you may want to use in your own settings. And of course, the opportunity to win a whole fantastic PEGS2 kit in our free prize draw, which takes place just before the Q&A to conclude this event. So without further ado, let's crack on and make a start.
All the products we've received have been well researched, well looked into. Everything we've had does exactly what we wanted to do. There's very good thinking behind a product development.
Customer service at Nexus is second to none. Everything is really good quality, excellent value for money. You know that what you're getting is really good educational equipment, so the children will get lots of different uses from it.
When the reps come, they don't just rush in, want to talk to you and rush out. It's not a sales pitch, it's an interaction, it's a dialogue, it's a discussion, which enables me to choose the resources I need effectively. There's never been an issue with anything we've purchased from them. Always keen to promote products and give us something a little extra to help us along the way. They're very conscious about schools' budgets.
We've had the mag pads, the threading one, we've had the magnetic shapes are just the best thing out.
We were very keen to look at PEGS2Paper, very keen to promote it with our staff. It's very clear that it's been a well thought through process in its creation. It gives my younger children particularly the opportunity to work with their gross motor, into their fine motor, into their writing and pencil control. It's proven to be very successful, and that's been seen in the outcomes for our children throughout the school.
Excellent.
So I'm going to very briefly just walk you through the PEGS2 range. So we have here PEGS2Paper. It uses the smaller pegboard, the large 10x10 pegboard and the lacing board, and we essentially are copying patterns from the work cards onto the boards. What we do is we copy those patterns again onto the dot sheets. This develops early pen control. Throughout this series of exercises, we copy the mantra of listen, do, say and draw. So we listen to the instruction, we then we carry it out onto the board. When we say what we've done, it develops the language. It helps the practitioner know that that child understands the colours, the numbers, the positions, and then draw. So then we draw that onto the dot sheet. For the ages 3 to 4 year olds, we're looking at getting these resources into the hands of the children, getting them to play with it, build stacks of pegs, create pictures onto the lacing boards. Brilliant at just developing those fine motor skills, and it's got such great play value, and it really gets them in love with the resources. Then moving on to the 4 to 5 year olds, we're then looking at more structured learning, working with the support material, copying those patterns and closely monitoring their circles that they're creating on the dot sheets. And this is brilliant at developing all of the underlying skills that children need in order to progress onto their primary education. Moving on, we then have PEGS2 CountUp. It's a fantastic resource for developing early maths. We have introduced here number rods, which are colour-coded to the pegs. Brilliant demonstration tool. Children can very easily see the rods, the pegs in front of the class, and it's great for just quizzing the children on various maths topics. Again, for the 3 to 4 year olds, we're looking at exploratory play, getting hands-on with the resources, just grabbing hold of the rods, trying to fit them into the frame like a puzzle. This is brilliant for developing their early number sense, see their number bonds without even realising that just by playing with this, it's going to develop lots of key skills. And there's also some great basic activities we can do for the 3 to 4 year olds. Then moving on to the 4 to 5 year olds, again, we're looking at more structured learning, working with small groups and quizzing those children and developing their early number sense. Then we move on to Pegs to Construction. Utilises a box of beautiful FSC wooden tools. And as you can see here, by using our Pegs to Count Up rods alongside these tools, we can make models like my little car there. Brilliant at further developing those fine motor skills. It's got great play value. As you've noticed, a theme with the Pegs to range is developing the fine motor skills, having chunky tactile resources to play with for the early years, and it really does set them up for their early education. So now what I'd like to do is pass you over to John, who's just going to show you where to find the Pegs to range on our website. This way you can learn more about the resources in your own time as well, and there's some great content on there for you to look through. Thank you.
To learn more about the Pegs to range, visit our website at www.learnplaynexus.com. Scroll up to the blue button. Here you will find designated pages for Pegs to Paper, Pegs to Count Up and Pegs to Construction. These pages are packed with informative videos, free support material downloads and the product directory. To find out more about what's happening in the Pegs to community, or to share your own stories, you can head to our Pegs to range Twitter page. That's @Pegs2range.
So now what I'd like to do is just more demonstrating on Pegs to Count Up in particular. Later we'll be joined by the Freemantle Early Years team, who will be doing a bit of demonstrating on the ages 4 to 5. So I thought I'd just do a bit more on the ages 3 to 4. So to elaborate on the point I made in my clip just now, it's really great for just introducing the rods into the frame, and it's really effective because you can just add these pieces in to start off and entice the children to come in and explore themselves, and then just leave them to it. What they're doing as they place these pieces in the board, they're working through their number bonds to 10 without even realising, and of course the wrong piece won't fit in the puzzle. So my 4 will not fit next to the 7. Only a 3 will fit next to the 7 to make my 10. So this familiarises the children with the resources, gets them used to it, and it's a great fun activity, and it's really great for group work as well, so they can all engage in the activity. Another one I'd like to show you is continuing patterns. What they need to do, children at this age, is to be able to identify a pattern. So that's the unit of repeat. So for example, if I had 1 blue, 1 orange, and placed it into the frame, and I asked the child, can you please continue this pattern? They would then place a blue and an orange. And by continuing it round this corner here, this makes it even more challenging. So if they can make that corner, we know the child has really understood that unit of repeat and then can continue it as well. We can do AB patterns, ABC patterns. So for example, I would have 2 orange, one blue, 2 orange, or I could have a mixture of different patterns. I can tower up as well, so I can make my patterns more challenging and more interesting, which is really good as well. And furthermore, what would be really great, once they've mastered the identification of the pattern and they can continue it, if you then create another pattern and take a few pegs away from the sequence and ask the child, can you spot a problem? What have you seen here? And if they can identify where the missing piece is, and they can tell you that should be a blue peg, then they've really understood the concept of continuing patterns. That's a really good activity for ages 3 to 4. Moving on, another great activity to do with that age group is composition of number in 5. And of course, children at this early age need to master 5 before they move on to 10. So I can get my 5 rod here, And of course, where we have our pegs represent different numbers in the colour scheme, at this stage it doesn't matter. You can just ask them to fill the rod with any choice of peg. So here I have 2 orange. I could put in 2 green. I could put blue. They can just fill that rod with whatever colours they like. Then we can say to the child, okay, that's great. So how many orange do you have? And they can point and count. 1, 2. Fantastic. But how many green do you have? 1, 2. Blue, 1. Brilliant. Okay, well, how many pegs do we have altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 2 orange plus 2 green plus 1 blue equals 5. Because this is my 5 piece here, isn't it? Yeah, wow, okay, it's brilliant. So this is brilliant at just getting the child to pick up the peg, getting engaged with the materials and placing it into the rod, and then asking them and quizzing them. And of course, we're just focusing on our numbers to 5 initially, which makes it very important for the ages, that early age group. Let's look at pegs to construction in a little bit more detail as well. So I have here my board set up, and I have my series of 8 work cards which come in with the system as well. And what's great about this is it's really fun because all the arms and legs can move around, which is great. It's posable and movable. Another little tip, which is really good, you can use your chalky pastels that come in with your pegs to count up set and write on your tiles, which also come in the set, write little faces, draw little faces on here, which is really good for emotions, particularly children about emotions. It can be sad, like so, or it can be happy as well. So we can just swap this over and talk about how's my person feeling today? Happy or sad? Oh, okay, it's happy. That's brilliant. What about labelling limbs? I've got leg. So where's my leg? Can you find it for me? Brilliant. They take it and they can place it where they think it fits. If they put it in the wrong place, you say, "Well, it's arm." So let's label that arm. Let's label that leg. So there's lots we can do to engage with this setup here. Of course, we can make a variety of different models. Like you can see, I've made a crane here. And essentially, if I just show you exactly how we use the tools to bolt these together, these rods. Here's a 3 and a 7 from my pegs to count up set. I've placed that over together like that. And then what I need is my square nut. I place that behind like so. I then have my bolt, and we have a series of different lengths of bolts for different purposes. And I can also screw it in by hand, but what I can do to make it really good and interesting is start introducing my tools. I've got my spanner here, so I can put my spanner at the back to hold it in place, and my screwdriver as well to screw the bolt. So this is teaching children exactly the mechanics of how we use tools in the real world. And it's chunky and tactile, beautiful wooden pieces, FSC wood. And you can see here I've got my pivot that I've made using the resources. So that's a good overview, a bit more in-depth overview of the pegs to count up resources and the pegs to construction resources. What you can see is very relevant for that young age group. So now I'd like to hand you back to Tim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie. Hello again, everyone. Just a really quick exercise that you may find useful helping children with their positional language development. Here is a 5x5 board from the Pegs to Paper kit. I chose a small board as it's easy to find the middle. The instruction to the child would be, take a peg, place it into the middle, take another peg and place it to the far left of the middle. Then we can find our right. Then we can look at the top and the bottom. And a further extension activity here could be, let's look at top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right. As with all pegs to paper activity, it's really good to actually draw what you've practiced with your pegs. So taking our circles page, we can now draw what we've done. You will now see a short introduction by Dr Angela Webb, child psychologist and pegs to paper inventor. Angela has dedicated a lifetime of work to this resource, and you will see during this video why the PEG system is such an important component for the early stages of a child's life.
Hello, I'm Angela Webb. I'm a child psychologist and former teacher, and I'm the author of Pegs to Paper. So I'm here to give you a little of the background to the work you're going to see today. This approach to enhancing children's motor and perceptual development using the pegboard and pegs has been in use since the 1980s, so it's been well tried and tested. It's based on the idea that when we engage physically with the environment and have bodily contact with materials such as the pegs and the board, our learning is much more robust. Pegs to Paper was originally devised as a way of engaging and supporting children who had motor perceptual difficulties. But its application and effectiveness for all children in the early years setting has now been recognised. And since I teamed up with Nexus, we've been able to refine and extend these materials. As you'll know, of course, work conducted in the early years focuses on building perceptual, motor, cognitive and language skills on which the mastery of literacy and numeracy depend. Just as you need ingredients to bake a cake, strengthening these cognitive and physical components contributes significantly to how easily children acquire reading, writing and maths. Just by using the materials, even in a play context, children improve fine motor skills, and the additional activities such as copying patterns all contribute to their progress. However, what marks Pegs to Paper out from other programs is the way it enhances listening skills and the use of language, which are central to all the activities. This makes the tasks much more than purely physical ones. The feeding in and the drawing out of language, so children become fluent in describing what they're doing, makes a much greater impact on their development than the pure motor activity alone. This has been demonstrated time and time again. Learning invoking language has the greatest impact and is most solidly retained. One key final element, whatever the child makes on the pegboard, is then recorded onto paper using the suitable Nexus writing implements. This linking of the ideas in the head to the work on the page using the pegs and pens is the final piece in this jigsaw, hence the title, Pegs to Paper. While these may appear an obvious component for reading and writing, the skills which Pegs to Paper originally focused on, it applies just as much to the development of numeracy. Research conducted at Nottingham University some years ago identified 6 vital components to learning maths, such as a sense of numerosity. Interestingly, however, the researchers found that of the 6 components, only 3 were specific to maths. The others applied across the curriculum, such as having a strong working memory and fluent language skills. And this is why Pegs to Paper has relevance beyond literacy. It nurtures both these. Nexus spotted the potential for maths development, and from this, Pegs to CatchUp and Pegs to Construction were devised. I hope you'll enjoy using these materials and find them as valuable as I have in my teaching over the years.
Thank you, Angela. Very young children often struggle with spatial awareness. We see that later when they start to write and leave no gaps or big gaps between letters and words. So how can we remedy this and prepare a child? One way to future-proof this is by placing the mechanics into their minds through play and repetition. This can easily be done with the pegboard. Let's play a game. Here, the instructions given to a child were to place 10 random pegs with one rule, that no one peg could be next to another. Then spread them out as far as possible. Then take a piece of paper and a colouring pen, triangular if possible, Nexus if possible. Draw 10 circles on the page. Look how fast that triangular pen works. Then place it on the board, and you can see that the children have spaced their circles. Then take another pen in a different colour and place that. It's a lot of fun, it's simple, and it's a really productive way to practice spatial awareness. I'd like to introduce Nina now and her team from Freemantle Academy in Southampton. Steadily with the pegs for some time now, this resource is widely used throughout their early years areas. And in this section, Dr Angela Webb will be asking Nina and her team questions, discussing their experiences of using these products. During this discussion, you will also get the opportunity to see recorded footage of children modelling some of their points.
Hello, Sharon, Nina, and Cathy.
Hello.
It's great to talk to you. And just like to ask you a few questions, please, about how you're using these various materials at Freemantle. So the first question is a very general one, and then I'm going to ask some questions about pegs to paper for literacy, more specifically, and then we'll move on to pegs to count up to see how you're using that for numeracy, and finally we'll see how these materials for helping you with remote learning. So to start with, I wonder, Nina, whether you could just give us an overview of Freemantle in the early years.
Sure. So we're a fairly large primary. We have just over 400 pupils, and we're situated in the city of Southampton, but we're right next to the dock area here as well. So a very mixed area in terms of children who come here. We are currently about 50% English additional language across the school, but many of those children come to us new to English, so literally have no English whatsoever. In our current early years team, we vary from being just under 40% EAL or new to English with our younger group of children who are 3 and 4 years old, and with our older group of early years children, the 4 and 5 year olds, we're currently 60% EAL, so that's quite significant.
You've been using pegs to paper for a while. Could you just talk us through how you use it at Freemantle, starting the age of 3 and moving through to 5-year-olds?
Absolutely. So with the pegs to paper resources, we start off by introducing them to our youngest children, our 3 and 4 year olds, and it's very much present in there as part of their continuous provision. So the classroom has various different areas and zones that the children can play in and explore, and the resources are there for their free use and engagement. The staff working with the children, they interact with the children, obviously observe, wait for a moment to join, and they also play with the materials alongside or with the children who are exploring them. As it stands, we don't start the pegs to paper interventions until the children are a little bit older. So when they're 4 years old and they move into what we call in England our reception class, that's when we start the intervention programs, usually because when the children move into that next class, they all start the term by engaging in a program called Clever Bodies, which looks to refine their gross and fine motor skills. And through engaging with that program, it's then very clear which children require some further intervention. And so then the materials have a bit more of a specific use, where I pick out key children that can work with them depending on need. But like I said, that does vary. I will just say, though, that as it stands, we're starting to look at the new EYFS reforms because they are changing for September 2021. And indeed, some early adopter schools will already be exploring them anyway. And certainly considering the new, some of the new statements and things, it's quite evident that with there being increased emphasis on handwriting and also greater expectations for mathematics, that we will need to start using the resources potentially more formally with that younger group of children as well. So here we have one of our early years practitioners working with a small group of children exploring the pegs to paper resources. She works with this same group of children 4 times a week. 3 to 4 times a week, I should say, and she will repeat these activities with different groups of children, working her way through the programme. The children in this group are made up with a variety of different groupings. There are children who have English as an additional language, pupil premium children, and also children with special educational needs as well. You can see in the video that she's following the programme by manipulating the pegs with the children and then attempting to write over the sheets. We laminated the sheets in this instance because of the frequency of them needing to use the sheet. But obviously, as the children become more proficient, we then do move on to paper because it's important they have the resistance of the pen on the paper as well.
Can you describe what the impact of using pegs to paper has been in your school?
There's immediate gains. You see a range of children who straight away their confidence develops because they can achieve and be successful at doing something, and that in itself then leads to greater gains elsewhere as well. So an increased level of confidence and certainly engagement. The children absolutely love the materials, whether it's used in exploratory play or whether it's used as part of the intervention. They're always excited to engage. You do see that even within weeks, the children's grip and use of pens and pencils are much better, and they start to apply that much needed pressure when handling mark making equipment, which is really good to see as well. I don't know if Cathy, Sharon, would you like to add anything else to that?
I think it's brilliant, actually, and it really does help the children with their confidence as well, and also their attention. Some children maybe who struggle perhaps with circle time, listening to instructions, that kind of thing, that does actually develop because during the pegs to paper, they have to listen to the instructions they're being given by the teacher, and they have to follow set rules. It's a very prescriptive intervention, and that does transfer onto the carpet when we're doing other things such as story time or just general talking and things like that. So yeah, we have noticed a big difference overall.
Okay, so let's move on now to peg to count up for numeracy. There'll be a lot of overlap in the gains because things like engagement and motivation and so on will be rather similar. But can you just tell us now, perhaps we'll go back to Union if we may, how is pegs to count up used from the age of 3 through to 5?
It's used in a similar way actually across the 3 to 5 year age bracket. With the 3 and 4 year olds, again it's used in their exploratory play, so the children have free use to access and manipulate the materials. It's really important. The use of manipulatives in maths is very key at the moment, and lots of research indicates that children need to have at least a year to manipulate those materials to be able to use them effectively in their problem solving and reasoning. And so they can use them in that exploratory way, but also when we have small group work where we're modelling key ideas or counting or representing different numerals, then we will use the resources in that way to support the children with their understanding. But again, they're not used in isolation. We often use other resources to complement those materials, such as Numicon or just generic counters as well. Then when we move into the older class, so the 4 and 5 year olds, again, the children have the option to use it in their exploratory play in the afternoon, but in the morning it's very much used to model and teach specific learning outcomes where the children are able to come and touch the materials in response to what the teacher is doing and sharing. Do you want to add anything else to that, Cathy?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant resource actually. Very visual, like I said earlier, they try and do it so that we're sat with the children facing us so that they can see the steps going up or down, and it's very clear to them. They really respond well to it. So if they're maybe struggling, because when you're 4 and 5, it is it's quite an odd concept really thinking about numbers and adding them together. But when you can see adding one each time, so we use like small objects to like do little groups. Then we use the count up, we use the Numicon, the numeral cards, multi-link, we've got everything so that every child is catered for, because some children like the count up, other people would like the Numicon, but putting them both together, they complement each other so well. And we found that using it every day, because we do use it every single day in our maths, as our sort of warm-up even, they respond really well to that, and it's helped with number bonds, everything. The count-up board that I'm using here, we're using with a small group of children. and we would normally use it with, say, half a class at a time. They'd be sat in a semicircle so that they can see the board looking directly at it, so they're not seeing it from the looking from up down onto it. What we're doing here is one more. So we're showing the children the different count-up pieces, and we're using the small one, the orange square, just to really show it visually that every time you add another one, the number gets bigger. And you can do that also with one less by showing it by taking it away. The children love this because it's really colourful, it's very visual, they can play with it, explore with it, touch it, and they just look at it and they can see it straight away going up in the steps. I think I refer to it as like a steps or staircase. They can see it that every time they take another step, every time they add another one, the number gets bigger. The children that I've got here with me, 2 of them are English as additional language. They sometimes find it hard to explain their knowledge, whereas the count-up board here, they can actually show it, so they're able to visually show me what they know, which makes it much easier for them. It's not as frustrating for them to try and get their point of view across. And there's also a child there who's actually quite able. English is his first language, but he's quite shy. He was quite shy at explaining things or telling me how he knew or explaining his reasonings. But using this count-up board, he was able to show me and talk to me about it, feeling confident because he could play with it and really experiment and deepen his understanding and get his point of view across.
With this video, we were finding ways to make different numbers. So we started off by doing it on our fingers and using what we know. And then we had a look at the count-up rods. We started with one number and they helped me to count the pegs into the rods. And then we checked to see by using the other rods on top, so we can see how the number bonds build into like a sandwich. So if we were doing this all the way up, we would go as high as we could so that we could see the patterns forming. So this makes it really visual for making number bonds and seeing all the different numbers that you can use to make a given number. And you can see the children are really engaged and really excited to see that what they thought was going to happen is actually happening. The girl that's sitting next to me is a PP child and is fairly reluctant, but she was the most involved in this activity. The little boy to my left is SEN and he loves lining things up and seeing things linearly, so this was perfect for him. And the 2 opposite me are both EAL, so it helps with their language development as well.
So how would you describe the impact on using pegs to count up?
Again, it comes down to engagement. Children are really engaged to use the boards just because they're so tactile, and children like things that are really big. And so because the board is so big, it's a big event to bring the big count-up board into a maths lesson. So they're immediately hooked in. But as Cathy was saying, some children prefer to use Numicon because that's how they can visualise a number, whereas others prefer to see it in a line. And to be able to use both alongside each other means that no one's getting left behind and no one feels like they're struggling. The children, even if they can't contribute to the lesson with some maths knowledge that they've picked up, they really enjoy the action of putting the pegs in, so they're still engaging in the lesson and they're still picking up some maths knowledge, but at their pace, and it doesn't single them out to anybody else if they don't know the answer, because they know they need to put a peg in that hole, and it starts to sort of embed it a little bit more with using muscle memory and that sort of multi-sensory approach to learning. So it just means that no one's left behind in the maths lessons.
Yeah.
The fact that the resources are so big and bright and bold, that really helps with that whole class or small group modelling, because often you find that when you're trying to model to the class, you're using materials that are quite small and they could easily be lost. And obviously children's attention spans at that age can be really small. And so because they're so visual, they lend themselves really well to then counting together by moving your fingers up the pieces, but equally even counting the pieces onto the board. It's quite a physical, action that's required to do that, and so it really helps to get that one-to-one correspondence when counting as well. So we find that for that reason, that's why it's so good when using it for that whole class or small group work as well.
That's very interesting. Thank you. So any of you, would you say you'd seen an increase in an interest in maths as a result of having these materials?
Oh, very much so, very much so. It starts right from our very youngest children. So you imagine if you walked into that group now, you'd see children building, I'll be honest, not using the equipment as they're designed to, but building huge towers to see how tall they can make their tower. But in doing that, you then interact with the children and you draw out the learning. So you can talk about the patterns they're making, you can talk about the number they've got. What will happen if I add one more? What if I had one less? And so, you can then interact with those children and start to draw out that problem solving. Equally, I find that when you step back and you watch those very young children learning and playing together, then because the materials are so tactile and the children desperately want to touch them and explore with them, then you start seeing the children make those connections amongst each other as well. And so it's that co-constructed learning that's really wonderful, and you can get so much out of that. And I think right from using it at that age, their confidence is built up, so that when they then come to the small group or the whole class work in that older year group, they're very confident with using and manipulating the materials, and so therefore they're more confident to then share their reasoning and further develop their problem solving alongside that as well.
Okay, let's move on now to remote learning, and perhaps you could explain how at Freemantle have you used these resources for remote learning during the crisis?
So we are pre-recording our phonics and our maths inputs for the children, and it's in the maths that we've been using the CatchUp resources. We've been using them to act as a warm-up for the children. So we're trying to make the videos as interactive as possible. So we're using all the resources the children are used to seeing. So we start off by doing a counting activity, and we will introduce the pegboard and encourage the children to be counting at home with us. We introduced topics of more and less over the lockdown period. So it was really visual for the parents as well, because obviously with the EL children come EL parents. So for the parents to hear the language modelled in the same way as the children, hopefully it's helping them to help their children also. So they've been a really good resource because it brings some familiarity for the children at home as well while they're trying to learn.
Where they pre-record these activities, then there are follow-up activities for the parents to do with their children at home afterwards, because what we don't want to lose is the idea that children follow their own problems, they create their own problems, number of problems if you like, and explore their own reasoning as well. It's not just a case of introducing something and yep, they can do it, so let's move on. We want to see them use those skills in a range of different contexts. And so the good thing about the clear visuals is that it really explains to the family what the point is we're trying to get across, what the learning outcome is. And then as a follow-up to that, they then can access a PowerPoint where we have specific activities, either using everyday resources or other counters or things they might have at home, so they can just strengthen their understanding. And that's really important because, we should be encouraging them to do this in a range of different contexts. We recently received some home learning packs for nursery, contacting the parents to, see how things are, because we made a decision in our school not to deliver live lessons for our early years children because it would be a little bit inappropriate. One particular parent who I phoned last week, was really worried because I'd sent a summary report out in the beginning of January to talk about the concerns I had around their child's fine motor skills and things they could do at home to further support that. And so when I received the packs, I then contacted this parent and asked her to come and collect it. And I also gave instructions of how she could use it, sort of adapting some of the pegs to paper materials in a simplified way that she could do at home quite easily. And I spoke to her on the phone today and she said, oh my goodness, it's like a miracle. She said, I've been tearing my hair out for weeks trying to get him to hold a pen and actually do anything, and I cannot get him off these materials. He is using them all the time. And she said, consequently, I'd set a task where we were exploring the book, The Runaway Pea, and I set a task to do some mark making and draw some peas using the anti-clockwise or clockwise movement. And he said, I can do that because I did it in my pack. and she sent me the work, and I was so blown away. And that's literally within a few days, so that's pretty amazing.
Well, it's always interesting to have feedback from practitioners who are using the materials all the time, because these activities, they develop all the time, and your feedback is very helpful in so many ways. So thank you very much. It's really interesting and helpful for both for Nexus and for me to see how you're using them. And I must say, it sounds most impressive. You seem to be getting the most out of those children, which is what we always want. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to Angela, Nina, Cathy and Sharon. We will have more opportunities to hear from the team when they will be answering all your questions later in the Q&A section. Now then, shape is paramount when asking a child to understand letter formation. When you look at the alphabet, every letter is made up of straight lines or circles. Again, we can prepare a child for this by placing pegs in vertical and horizontal lines. Let's play a game. Here, a child is asked to choose a colour and make a line down the left-hand side of the board. Next, choose another colour and make a line down the right-hand side of the board. Now tell me what you have done. What colour are these pegs? How many pegs are there? Where is the bottom? Where is the top? Copy your patterns onto the sheet, drawing your circles as best you can, starting at the top and working anti-clockwise, as that's how you would normally form a letter. Now, with a black pen, create and draw your straight lines, as you can see. You can finish this modelling by finishing your horizontal top and bottom, and then of course finishing your whole square. Exercise this by leading into a really fun game where a teacher and a child or two children take it in turns to draw squares and circles. The teacher draws the first line, as you can see, and the child will draw the second line, starting in the top left-hand corner. They can then gradually fill this square until there's no space left. Then they can work with circles. So it's a really fun way to fully engage children. Charlie now will run through the catch-up kits that we have.
Thank you, Tim. So it's worth noting as well that on our webinar sign-up form, we had a number of people asking, how can we make learning from home more fun? How do we, how do we boost morale at home? How do I engage my early years child with resources? So we've been thinking about you guys, and we've developed our essential catch-up kits range. And yes, I will start, Tim, by showing Nina's kit that she's been using with her children, which you essentially get the basics. You get the 5x5 pegboard, you get your 25 pegs, okay, and you get your pens, of course, to do your circles, and you get a digital instruction sheet that you can scan for all your patterns, and you get a dot sheet in there as well to do all the circles as well. And this is the most basic pack of that variation. We do a more advanced version of that pack as well, which comes with a clear board. And this is really good because you can put your dot sheet inside, and you can actually preserve that dot sheet and use it many times, much like in the fashion that Freemantle do in their own setting with laminating their cards. Comes with that. Also, the more advanced pack comes with a Nexus favourite with lots of you, comes with a MagniPad tablet. So the parents at home get to experience the joy of our MagniPad tablets as well. So that's that pack. We also do a lovely pack, which I know Nina and the team have also been using, sending home to their parents, which is a playboard pack. And it comes with two playboards, a black and a white one, which tile together. Many of you will know this very famous resource from us. And for any of you that don't know, it's much like our Lincoln Lace for pegs to paper, step-free pegs to paper. It's our lacing board here. And you can basically develop fine motor skills, you can create patterns and pictures, you can connect them together. It's really, really fun. But great for developing those motor skills, great for imaginative play as well. So that's another set we do. But of course, all of the stationery you've come to know and love, our whole boards range, pencil, pen range, stationery range, we do lots of variations of essential catch-up kit bags. And they're just ideal for sending home to the parents at the moment. So do look out on our website. Do get in touch with your local account manager to learn more. So that's a quick run through of the remote learning resources. Now here's for the fun bit. I'm going to pass you over to John, who's going to now do our prize draw.
Thanks very much, Charlie. Now to the part of the webinar where one lucky establishment can win themselves over £200 worth of our Pegs to range, and they can choose between either a Pegs to Paper kit or a Pegs to CountUp kit. We've had some issues with the chat, but I've managed to fill in a spreadsheet with a list of all the attendees, and I'm now going to ask Dr Angela Webb to choose a number between 1 and 205. So, Angela, would you do the honours, please?
Okay, thank you very much. What about 137? 137.
137. Hold on a minute. Let me just scroll down. 137, and that is Margaret Littlejohn from Burnbrae Children's Centre. So congratulations, Margaret. So if you could email your account manager or email connect@learnplaynexus.com, we'll arrange delivery of your set. And now I'm going to hand back to Tim for the Q&A section with Angela and the Freemantle team. Tim.
Thank you, John, and congratulations to our lucky winner there. What a fantastic prize. Before we start the Q&A, Angela's already made herself known. Can Nina and the team make themselves known, please?
Hello. Hello.
So let's start. Let's start with a few questions. This question is for the Freemantle team. Do you have any specific cases where a once struggling child has since excelled, having used the resources?
Yes, we have many actually, but the one that I can think of is a little boy. He's very able. English is his first language. He's great attitude towards learning, but his fine motor was very poor, so he really struggled with putting down on paper what he could tell me. So he did the intervention, the Pegs to Paper, and his writing has just flourished, and his confidence has grown, and he'll now come and show me his work, and he's smiling, and he's coming up and saying, look, I've written this word, I've written that word. He can now, and also that's come onto the carpet, his confidence has come onto the carpet during carpet time, and he'll actually share sentences with us, he'll share his information, and his love of learning has developed even more. So it's really been brought on by the Pegs to Paper because it's improved his fine motor so much.
Fantastic.
I have a child as well that we've been really pleased with. So he's 4 and is yet to find his dominant hand. So that's made teaching him his letter formation or any form of sort of paper-based activities really tricky for us as practitioners. He then took part in the Pegs to Paper intervention and now has found that his dominant hand is his right hand. So we can now begin to really help him to strengthen his hands and to be able to write more successfully, which again, as Cathy was saying, has helped his confidence because he's now much more able to put his thoughts onto paper. So that was a real breakthrough for us as well.
Fantastic. Now another question. This is for Angela. Angela, you still with us?
Yes, I am indeed.
If you had to select one exercise using the pegs in the original 10x10 pegboard as a personal favourite, which one would it be?
Well, I always go back to the very beginning of how this program was conceived, and I do think the step 2 pattern cards, where you use the 10x10 pegboard and you work steadily through the cards, they are the most influential, really, because first of all, you're establishing for the child the way of working, how they're listening and the doing and the saying and drawing the language. You establish that because the cards increase in difficulty throughout the set. So they mirror the developmental stages the child goes through with their understanding line. But it also helps the teacher because the teacher can measure or evaluate in some way what the child's level of understanding is. So if you've got to say the third card, and the child isn't quite so sure as they were on 1 and 2, you can repeat those. And I would say work at that level until the child is really confident before you move on to the next one. So it's a way really of monitoring how the child's understanding is progressing. So I would say the step 2 cards with the 10x10 pegboard gets my vote.
Hey, fantastic. I have another question for the Freemantle team. How much Pegs to Paper and Pegs to CountUp resources do you have, and how does this differ between the two?
Okay, so I'll be honest, we're really lucky at Freemantle. We've got a whole range of resources and our children are able to use those in a range of different ways. But I'm going to be realistic, budgets are tight, in early years settings, in schools, we all know that. And so the beauty of the products is that you can start off with quite a small amount. And then when you begin to see the impact, as and when you can afford it, you can then grow and develop your sets. So you need to have enough. If you're going to use it for continuous provision, you need to have enough for a group of children to be able to freely explore the materials. You need loads of pegs because they love to make towers and they love to explore. And then in terms of the count-up board, I would say you need one per class or per group that you can use as part of whole class or whole group demonstration. And then the children can use that same board for their free exploration because they're really robust. So like I said, lots of pegs, enough for continuous provision. And if you're using it as an intervention, then, you normally work with between 4 and 6 children in a group, so enough to accommodate the needs of those children. And they can be used by different groups. Obviously, coronavirus won't be with us forever. I hope.
Okay, thank you, Nina. John, I know we've had a few problems with the questions filtering through. Have we had any more live questions tonight?
We haven't, I'm afraid, Tim. I think that's because the chat function seems to have gone down on Microsoft Teams. But as I said, if people have any pressing questions, they can email connect@learnplaynexus.com, and then we'll deal with them and come back to them either via their account manager or via a central resource.
Fantastic, John. Thank you. It's 5:25. We're 5 minutes early. We're going to keep our lines open here and stay on our webinar for anybody that wants to stay behind and chat with us, guys. Other than that, I'd like to thank you all for joining on this webinar. There will be more webinars in the future where we will be tackling a whole host of different subjects, including art. That's going to be one of the focus webinars coming up within the next couple of months. So unless you want to stay online and chat to us and ask us questions, I look forward to seeing you all at the next webinar. Thank you all for attending.
On that, Tim, maybe we should ask anyone who wants a question, unmute themselves. If the chat doesn't work, perhaps we'll do that.
Okay.
There's 4 hands raised. If anybody wants to
okay.
ones with hands, there's Claire Parfit with a hand raised. Do you want to take off with mute, Claire?
Yep. I just want to say to Nina, we've just bought the CatchUp packs to go home, and they've gone down really, really successfully. It'd just be interesting, I think, to just see a few more videos for teachers. That would be really, really helpful, I feel. If you've got any that you can share.
Absolutely. So we've got our school is Freemantle Academy. You can go onto our website, and if you go to the class learning pages, you can have a look at some examples of our home learning there. The CatchUp packs. Unfortunately, I haven't got as many pictures on there I can share with you because our parents are sharing that via Tapestry. But certainly it's something we could try and gather and provide Nexus with for the future if that's what you wanted.
Yeah, they've just been really successful when we've sent them home. Parents really liked them.
Yeah,
thank you.
They are lovely. No problem.
So Tim, I've got a question for you. What are we going to do our next webinar on?
I think. What do you think? Maybe. Well, I think arts, don't you?
Yeah, arts and crafts. We've got a good arts and crafts selection, so that would be something we can cover.
We started life, John, you won't know this. We started life in 1995. I was one of the original 7 founders of Nexus, and we were very heavily orientated towards art and craft. And we have maintained those roots in schools and nurseries. So we have a wealth of art products, and Charlie has a degree. Is it a degree in? Is that in? Didn't you work for Madame Two Swords?
Yeah, no, I worked for Madame Two Swords. Put me on the spot here now. Yeah, no, I did work for Madame Two Swords. I done a few bits and pieces. But yeah, no, I've studied something called model making, which special effects and I wanted to be in working on films and things. And I did have a little run through there, and fate brought me to Nexus, which is my dad's company. So there we go. Now I'm here with you guys, and yeah, I'm quite eager actually. Now you mention it, to get on with some art and craft demonstrations at our next webinar. So
that'd be awesome.
Come along, it's going to be great. I've got silky pastel ones. I mean, Nina, you love the silky pastels, don't you?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I just raised my hand to say, literally, those silky pastels, you know, that they would sell the webinar. Our children absolutely, I can't tell you, they absolutely love them. And initially, we bought them for early years because, you know, we thought they're bold, bright, chunky, you know, great for those young children. And then in our school, we have curriculum swaps where we are able to teach children across the primary phase. And I'll be honest, I forgot that it was my turn to do a curriculum swap. And so that lunchtime, I was thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I thought, right, I've got to go to year 5, or I'm going to take the silky pastels. And I took them. The children were like, wow, this is amazing. And the artwork they created was to die for. I mean, literally, we some of it's in frames in our hallways because it just looks so good. You know, lovely sunset pictures because they blend so beautifully, and you just want to use them. They are, you know, they are to die for.
Nina, have you tried using the silky pastels with a paintbrush and water?
Oh God, yeah. And if you mold them with your hands and you can mix the colours, oh, they are just to die for. Honestly, I can't. You know, once you see them in action, you will want them. You'll want them so much, I can tell you.
So there we are, Charlie. I think it's going to be definitely an art-based webinar next. We could also introduce our new our glue sticks. We got these the new gel sticks that we're supplying to all our schools. We've now got refills to go inside that will be launched in our next launch in April. So anybody that has that's still online that has the Nexus gel sticks, don't throw them away, because we will be doing little capsule refills that to save the environment that you can just refill. So the other thing I was going to say, Tim, through our contact email address, connect@learnplaynexus.com, why don't we see people can go onto our website, and if there's anything they see on there, maybe come up with ideas of things that we can do. Come up with suggestions of what you guys out there want us to do. That'd be brilliant. We're very happy to be guided by our customer base. We are, as you know, guys, a demonstrating company. We have been since we started out in 1995, and that's where our skill set is. That's why it's been quite difficult during COVID, having to, you know, contact our customers via screen. It's just something that we're all very foreign to.
Can I just say something that I mentioned to Charlie? I think it's worth mentioning. I think, you know, I said to him, what I love about Nexus is the fact that you really do stand by your strapline of innovation for education, because you really do want to make a difference and change. And I know that, you know, in the short time that we've worked with Charlie and the Nexus team, you know, the team very much take on board our ideas, our wants, our needs, and then put that into action. And so, like I said, it's so different to all other major companies, because you're not just looking for a product that you can sell and then sit back and let the money roll in. It's all about developing and improving, and that's why I love the Nexus product so much. And that's why, you know, I'm excited to know how the developments are going to carry on and change, because I know that you're going to be really on it in terms of providing for changes in the curriculum, changes that are necessary for children. And yeah, so I really do, you know, the innovation part, it just goes on and on and on, which is amazing.